Hi, Jim. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening indeed. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. So I'm hearing right now, maybe there was some problems with my sound system on the computer.
Well, and sometimes you have to tell the computer where to send the sound, but sounds like you did a good job of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So how are you doing? It was
We're
a
doing
very
very
nice,
well.
wonderful day.
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Yes.
It makes up for last week.
Yes. Hi, Bob. Good
Hello.
evening. How are you?
I'm good. Makes up for this coming weekend too. It's getting
And this coming weekend, yeah. Leon, have you met Bob before?
I think we didn't meet before. I just met Kevin Miser.
Kevin Meister. He'll be on
Yes.
tonight. Yes. He's
Yes.
from Highlands
Yes.
Ranch.
Yes.
Very good.
right.
friend.
So very nice to meet you, Bob.
You too. We've worked with IRC when it first moved to the Denver area
Yes.
and helping refugees from several countries. Our club will be working with, we just got a name of a family of 7 that will be our club, our Rotary Club will be working with. So we're looking forward to that.
So thank you so much for all the support that you provide to the refugee families, and also thank you so much for everything you do. I'm together working with Eleanor Franks.
Yes.
Yes. And Eleanor is working on the home program, and then I'm working on the community sponsorship program. So both are actually the same, but with different names. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I remember talking with her about whether you would be talking to us, trying to figure out which of those things we'll be doing. So we went with the yeah.
So you are a co-host, so you can open PowerPoint if you would like, when you're ready.
For today, actually, I prepared the presentation. I was like feeling more comfortable with the presentation slides.
Great.
So I hope that's fine with the members and with the distinguished guests today. So I can share the presentation slides once we are ready.
Great. And so you said he's already made host, so that you'll just
I'm the host.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Bob. Yeah. Okay. So,
how long have you been in this country then?
I've been here in this country and the US from September 1st last year. But in Denver from September 20th. I mean, 20 days later, because I spent 19 days in New Mexico in one of the safe havens, which was managed by the US military for all the new guests. So I was a guest for them for 19 days, and then we moved to Denver.
I didn't hear where in Albuquerque, where in New Mexico?
It was in Alamogordo, the base named Holloman Air Force Base.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were there for some preliminary documentations, some like security processing, and also some pre-health screenings in the base, which is typically called the safe havens. Then on September 20th, we moved to Denver. Actually, I made like a volunteer move out from the safe haven. So I didn't stay for the resettlement agency or the agency that I'm right now working with, which is IRC. I didn't wait for them. And then I moved voluntarily. And yeah, we ended up in Denver with my family, with my wife and 3 kids.
Nice. So you're living in Denver now?
I'm living in Aurora.
Aurora.
I'm living in Aurora.
Yes. Yeah, the center of activity is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I work in Denver area. I work with IRC, which is in Colorado Boulevard. So every day I drive all the way to downtown. And then, yeah, it's like I'm enjoying driving all the way from home to work. And then in the evenings, just looking around, and then nice, beautiful scenery that we have all the way from Denver to Aurora. So actually, spring is on its way, and I'm enjoying.
Oh, very good. You have to come out to visit us in Golden sometime. We'll take you around.
I will definitely. I will do that. I will do that, and I will be more than happy to come over and to visit you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And Jim's nearby in Lakewood, and so
Okay.
the IRC office used to be in Lakewood when they first came to Denver. To the Denver area. And then they moved
to
where
Denver.
they're
So I'll be more than happy to come and visit your office and visit you. And it will be a big privilege for me to come over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's set that up. That would be great fun.
Do you speak to Rotary clubs? Would you speak to Rotary clubs?
Basically, I spoke with Kevin Meiser
Yes,
before.
Island friend.
Yes, and with two other gorgeous ladies which were supporting Kevin Meiser with the home program, which is now managed by Eleanor. So basically, I had a chance to talk to all three of them. And last week also I had a chance to meet Kevin, and we had a good coffee. Yes, and we had a good chat. Yes, we had a long 2 hours chats with a good coffee. Yes.
Yeah, it's easy to have an hour's talk with him. Yes.
Yes. And yesterday I met, yesterday evening I met Norma. And Norma, one of the ladies, gorgeous ladies.
Husky.
Yes, yes. So she's actually a women, I mean, like activist. And then she's doing advocacy for the women activities all over the country. And also she has a very good network with the women activists all over the globe. So we had a chance to talk to her. And then share our ideas. Basically, the ultimate goal was to share the community sponsorship program.
Yeah. She'll be on tonight. It looked like.
Okay.
She's registered.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you will probably not fill, though we will more than fill a screen, so you'll have a couple of screens. So Q&A will be a little more of a challenge, and we may use the chat box more.
Okay.
And we'll monitor that. Bob, we've got, I don't know, we had several come in today after I sent out the links. We got about 35, 36 registered. Out of that, maybe 30, 25, we average about 80% of the people that say they're coming actually show up.
But this topic, I think, has attracted new people. I sent out more invitations today with a group of Rotarians from the district that there are 3 different clubs that are working with Afghan refugees, and we decided to network. And I said, "Hey, have you heard about this talk tonight?" And
so I'm lucky today that we got too many audiences today, and thank you so much for that, for wider circulation of the link. And I will also try to be more focused and then to be I don't know how our friends will feel comfortable, whether they are detail oriented or just we can go brief over the presentation and the slides.
Yeah, I'm sure whatever you do will be perfect. So we thank you. I will be curious also on what success and how your experiences went attempting to convert the farmers in Afghanistan to a different crop. Was that beneficial, effective?
Do you want the answer right now, Jim? If you want, yes, I can go through that right now until our friends and colleagues will get online. Yes, basically the attempts for the conversion of the efforts for the counter narcotics started back in 2000 actually, when even the Taliban was the first time they were controlling the country. The supreme leader of the Taliban back in 2000, he issued a declaration that for the reduction of poppy cultivation in Afghanistan, but that wasn't temporary. That was not sustainable. Then from 2001, when the US, actually the new government under the name of the Republic started, actually every country who had a stake in Afghanistan, they started to put some efforts to the possible extent for the reduction of poppy cultivation in Afghanistan. Too much attempts have been done. Only US spent around $10 billion in Afghanistan for poppy reduction of poppy cultivation or counter narcotics, which most of this money gone to the law enforcement. So at the very recent years, I started from 2017. So finally, the International Bureau of Law Enforcement and Counter Narcotics of the United States Department of State, so they had some sources, some resources and some funds for the alternative development. So I just want to make it short that actually certain areas have been identified. Except one of the highly poppy cultivated province, which is in the south, is very famous. Helmand province is very famous. Yes. Yeah. Except Helmand, they have identified 3 other provinces, which was highly poppy cultivated. They identified Farah in the western of Afghanistan. They identified Badghis in the northwestern of Afghanistan, and Nangarhar, which is bordering with Pakistan in the eastern part of Afghanistan. So they identified 3 provinces to go there and start an alternative development. Actually, we call it area-based alternative development approach. So at the very beginning, we just started with the quick impact projects. The quick impact projects that can bring benefits to the farmers in the short run. So mostly they were greenhouse products. Because though we have already identified some value chain crops, high value chain crops, I mean legal high value chain crops, because poppy was also a well-defined value chain crop, but that was illegal. So we have identified some high value, illegal high value crops in those areas specific for those provinces, starting from the quick impact projects, I mean from the greenhouse products, and then moving to the high value crops, because greenhouse products were short-term impact, and then of course the high value crops that have been identified that had like long-term impact for the years the farmers had to wait for the investments that they were supposed to do to get harvest of those products. So quick impact projects like greenhouse products were in short term, it impacted a lot. So in the 1 unit of land, the farmers, they attempted to cultivate some greenhouse products. Compared to poppy cultivation, it was 5 times more, because poppy, the farmers, they could harvest only once a year, while the greenhouse products, they could harvest twice a year. With the same size of land, they were earning 5 times more. For example, with 1 unit of land, the farmers were getting around, from poppy cultivation, they were getting around $530, while with the greenhouse products, with the same size of land, they were getting $3,500 per year. So wow, that was, yes.
So thank you very much for that summary, Jim.
Yes.
Asked me a lot of questions before we started here. And so he was telling us about one of his projects in Afghanistan. and working with the alternatives to poppy farming. So thanks for answering that question, but now we need to get into our talk. So we have a lot of people have signed in and we could get some more. But my name is Bob Rose. I'm with the Evergreen Rotary Club. Our club is working with International Rescue Committee to sponsor a family and who we've just got their name. So we'll be meeting them in the next few weeks. But we have been very impressed with the work of International Rescue Committee, who now Milad works for.
Thank you.
I hope you got a chance to read his bio. It's really very impressive. Much work, with International Rescue Committee in Afghanistan and now here, but also worked for the Ministry of Interior Affairs in the country. He worked on development work, just like he was describing a few minutes ago. So Milad, we welcome you to speak to us. We really try to keep to an hour, and we do want a little room for questions and answers. But we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say, especially in this time. And now we may have a new flood of refugees with the current news but there's still plenty need for support of Afghanistan folks. So yeah, looking forward to what you have to say, and hope we do get to meet face to face someday.
Thank you so much, Bob. So once again, happy evening, happy Thursday evening, everybody. And I know that everybody has gone to a whole bunch of activities during the day. So I hope everybody is doing well. And then I have some sort of like the slides, presentation slides. I hope that's not tiring, but please stop me if those slides are like bring you tiredness. So thank you so much, Bob, and thanks so much, colleagues, for joining today. So I'm going to share my my screen, if that's fine.
It looks good. Yeah.
Yes. So you have my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So actually, I have divided my presentation today in 3 parts. The first part, if you are fine with that, let me walk you through a little bit history, not very long history, but the last 20 years, starting from September or from 9/11, September 11th, 2001, to the August 15, 2021. So this is like a brief history of the last 20 years. Actually, in my case, I've grown up, I was born when Soviet invaded in Afghanistan. So then I have grown up, actually not only me, the whole my generation. We have grown up in war. We have experienced the civil war in Afghanistan. We have then experienced the first time Taliban occupation of the country. We have experienced the 20 years of the US and the international community presence in Afghanistan. And finally, we experienced the second occupation of the country by the Taliban, which happened on August 15, 2021. If I get some, and during the presentation, if I get some like a little bit emotional, so please forgive me, please apologize me. Just today, unfortunately, the Taliban, just this morning, I received a call from my dad just before they have approached our house for the home search, which this process has been started a week ago. So finally today they reached to our house. So they started my house searching. So a little bit like mentally from couple of hours ago, I was like under stress. So yeah. anyways, these slides, actually what happened in 2001, everybody of us know that 9/11 happened. Al-Qaeda attacked the US and the infrastructures in the US. They attacked the Pentagon, they attacked the Twin Towers. So, and then their leader was based in Afghanistan back in 2000, between 1990s. He was stationed in Afghanistan. He was supported by the Taliban, and he got a safe haven in Afghanistan. So when Al-Qaeda attacked the US infrastructures, both the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, so when the US requested the Taliban actually to take out or to withdraw Al-Qaeda's leader from Afghanistan, and then the Taliban denied. So the US declared with the permission of the UN Security Council and also later on the NATO, so they declared a war on terror. And the war on terror, I just remember the day that they have started the airstrikes, which was on October 20th, 12 o'clock midnight, 2001. So the first airstrike happened. And then in only 1 month, the US war on terror could defeat the Taliban in Afghanistan. On the same year, November 2001, the international community, of course, the United Nations in the lead, they have convened the first intra-Afghan talks, and also with the presence of the international community under the name of Bonn Agreement. So they have formed a new government. Of course, the government at that time was the interim government of Afghanistan, which was for 6 months. So they have appointed the first head of interim government, and the Northern Alliances, for the first time in the history of Afghanistan, they have peacefully transferred the power to the interim government of Afghanistan under the leadership of Hamid Karzai, the former president of Afghanistan. So in 2001, 3 important events happened for Afghanistan. 9/11 happened, and then the war on terror started, and then the Bonn Agreement. However, in Bonn Agreement, the Taliban was defeated at the time. Taliban was counted, or Taliban was declared.
Let me in the meeting. I don't have any sound coming forth.
Do you hear us? Do you hear me?
Yes,
Bob?
yes,
Okay.
you can go ahead.
Yes.
Someone is having
Yes.
difficulty. We'll mute folks, and people probably need to turn their volumes up if they can't hear.
Okay, thank you.
Just go ahead.
So the Taliban was defeated, and then the international community and also the US declared them as terrorists. And Bonn Agreement, the Taliban was excluded from the negotiations and from the forming of the new government. So we walked all the way. We walked all the way from 2001 to 2021. So during all these years, 52 countries, they had presence in Afghanistan. They have invested in Afghanistan. Their soldiers fought in Afghanistan. They dispatched their troops in Afghanistan. So they had a lot of effort. There were a lot of efforts from the international community for rebuilding Afghanistan first, the reconstruction phase of Afghanistan, and then the transitional process, and of course at the end, so for developing of Afghanistan. Every country did their effort in every sector, from the governance to the infrastructures, to the law enforcement, to the health, agriculture, private sector development. So in every sector, every country played their part, and every stakeholder in the Afghanistan process, they took their part. But what happened? That all these attempts, all these efforts, finally, they all ended on August 15, 2021. So I will come later on to that. So after years of war between the US international community and the Taliban, so finally, during Trump administration, they have agreed to go for a US and the Taliban peace talks or peace negotiations. So after 2 years of the peace talks, so they came to an agreement. The US and the Taliban, they started the peace negotiation in 2018. We don't have the exact date, but the rough data shows that they started the negotiations, the peace negotiations in 2018, of course, with the absence of the government of Afghanistan, in the absence. So there are a lot of objections on the US, especially for the special envoy of the US for the Taliban and the US peace deals, Zalmay Khalilzad, that Afghanistan, there was not presence of Afghanistan government in the peace talks between the US and the Taliban. On February 2020, the US and the Taliban signed an agreement, a peace deal. This peace deal, they named this peace deal agreement for bringing peace to Afghanistan. Actually, this agreement was between the US and the Taliban. So there were some sort of agreements. The US started withdrawal of their troops from Afghanistan. Coinciding with that peace deal, the day that US and the Taliban signed the peace deal in Doha, Qatar, in Afghanistan, in Kabul, on the same day, the NATO, the US, and the Afghanistan government, I mean the former government, the Republic team, signed an agreement. They announced a declaration that the NATO, and also the US will not leave Afghanistan alone. These both entities will support Afghanistan government, I mean Afghanistan Republic government. So these two incidents happened at the same time, at the same day, at the same hours. So after that, these agreements, the US and the Taliban peace deal, and also the NATO, the US and the Republic team declaration, actually it paved the road for the intra-Afghan peace talks, which on the December 2020, for the first time, the Republic team and the Taliban sat on one table and they started the intra-Afghan peace talks. So what happened from December 2020 and August 15, 2021? That's another story. So this was the process of the Afghanistan peace process. Actually, let me point that at that time, during this period, I was working with the United States Institute of Peace, and we were responsible to do the social peace building in Afghanistan, alongside with the political peace deals that has happened between the US and also with between the US and the Taliban, and also the intra-Afghan peace talks started. We were doing social peace building at the grassroots level in Afghanistan. So we were conducting the peace dialogues between different layers of the communities in order to bring actually to explain what exactly social peace is, and also to work on the coexistence in the country. So this was a very brief Afghanistan peace process. This photo shows the president's office. This is actually, the time is around 6 o'clock in the evening of August 15, 2020. 21, when the Taliban entered into the city and they occupied the office of the president of Afghanistan. And this actually, I took this photo from Al Jazeera. So Al Jazeera was live broadcasting all the process when the Taliban entered into the capital and they occupied the president's palace, and then how they were treating with the people. So this was what happened on August 2021, and the collapse of the republic after 20 years of all those attempts. So the republic collapsed, and the emirate, the Islamic emirate of the Taliban, again on the power. This is the evacuation process. You can see the evacuation process. Maybe you have seen the YouTube videos. Maybe you have seen that these, actually, maybe you have seen this photo and this video. This happened exactly on August 16th, 2021, when a bunch of people, they entered into Kabul airport and they wanted to be evacuated by the US forces on C-17 planes. So the American forces, together with 8 other countries, including India, Australia, Germany, Spain, Korea, they started the air evacuation, the historic air evacuation from Kabul. So every country wanted to evacuate their allies from the country. So maybe you have heard about the C-17 planes, 470 people on one C-17 plane. Even in one case, I have heard that there were 600 people on one C-17. So the second photo shows that how people were evacuated. Yes, in 10 days, actually in 11 days, around 124,000 people have been evacuated from Afghanistan. And this is the last photo, is the last soldier of the US who left Afghanistan after 20 years. The time is 11:59 p.m. Kabul time. The last soldier of US left Afghanistan. And the chapter of 20 years US war on terror concluded in Afghanistan. So this, how the evacuation process. Actually, I have a next slide. This shows my personal experience from the evacuation. On August 26th, when we have been evacuated from Kabul, that was the day that the suicide attack by the ISIS happened in the northern gate of Kabul airport, and we in the southern gate of Kabul, and then we were in the northern gate of Kabul airport. So during that suicide attack, 13 US soldiers were killed, and including 170 other civilians, they were killed. 200 civilians were wounded. So this was the evacuation day. We came all the way from Kabul to Kuwait, and then to Rota in Spain, and then to Washington, D.C., and then to New Mexico. This is how we have been, actually this photo shows that we have been evacuated the first day from Kabul, and then we spent 12 hours, non-stop flight from Kabul to Rota, from Kabul to Kuwait, and then to Rota with my kids, with my wife, and with other, of course, other people. So this photo shows that how we traveled all the way from Kabul to Rota with 12 hours on C-17, and then finally we ended in the safe haven in Holloman Air Force Base. And the last photo shows that how this is a very kind lieutenant. I love him. He supported us a lot, and he treated us as a guest. And this is the day that we have just moved out from the camp. Actually, this slide shows the process of the evacuation. Because last time when I was talking with Kevin Meiser and other colleagues, they asked how many people have been evacuated, some figures and facts. Between August 15 to September 31st, August 31st, around 125,000 people have been evacuated from Kabul, which from those 124,000, 97,000 plus people they have been ended in the US. The rest in other countries like UK, Australia, Spain, European countries, Canada, and other places. So 90,000, 97,000 plus people they have been ended in the US. So all of these people were going to a transit in different destinations, in Doha in Qatar, Abu Dhabi in UAE, Kuwait, Ramstein in Germany, Albania, Tirana, Uganda, and Spain. These were the transit, actually the military bases that US has in these destinations, they were in transit. So they stayed between 1 month to 2 months until they were transferred or brought to the US. So they have been settled temporarily in 8 safe havens, actually military camps. These are actually the military camps. We call it safe havens. And Fort Pickett, Fort Lee in Virginia, Fort Bliss, Fort Biggs, Fort McCoy, Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, Camp Battery, and Batista in Maryland. So these 97,000 people, they were temporarily settled in these 8 destinations. Historically, Colorado is the recipient of 2% of the total migration countrywide. So, since the evacuation, the IRC has begun resettling over 10,000 Afghan refugees around the country. This figure is about IRC. And Colorado expects around 2,000 Afghans to come. Right now, by March 1st, 2022, we have welcomed 687 people from Afghanistan. So, up to now, we have around 1,800 guests or new arrivals, new Afghan arrivals in Colorado, Denver. So, around 687, 690 people are provided services by IRC, the rest with the Lutheran Family Services, by the African Community Center, and also with the State Afghan Placement Assistance Program, which is called SAPA. So these are the 4 agencies that are working in Denver, Colorado for the resettlement process of the Afghan evacuees. So all the camps except Batista and Maryland have been closed. We have no more guests in those camps. Just right now, I think, because last week there were some negotiations that they will launch another safe haven in Virginia area to welcome the 2,500 other evacuees who have been temporarily settled in the lily pads, like in Albania, like in Doha, Qatar, and also, or in Abu Dhabi. So for now, we have all the safe havens have been closed. So now I'm done with this brief history. I will talk a little bit about the economic and social and political impact of the US and the NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan. From 2001 to 2021, more than $2.3 trillion spent in Afghanistan war. Most of them is spent in Afghanistan, a little bit spent in Pakistan. So the calculation is that $300 million spent only a day on Afghanistan war. $300 million spent every day on Afghanistan war. And of course, there are 2 other countries which had the biggest share, the UK and Germany, who sent their troops to Afghanistan. And also they spent around $30 billion and $19 billion in Afghanistan, respectively. And overall, the total military expenditure in Afghanistan was around $825 billion and $140 billion for Afghanistan reconstruction. These are some facts and figures. So from these $2.3 trillion, $1.5 trillion spent only on war. $500 billion is the interest. $87 billion on Afghanistan military and police. $87 billion to rebuild. Actually, to establish the new military, or let's call it Afghanistan National Defense and Security Forces, NDSF, to rebuild under the name of Afghanistan National Army and Afghanistan National Police. They spent, only US spent around $87 billion. $10 billion on the counter-narcotics efforts without the efforts on the alternative development. And also $24 billion on economic development in the other sectors like health, education, infrastructures. These are the figures about the casualties and deaths. Only US military in Afghanistan, 2,324 people died. I mean, military personnel, soldiers, they were killed. DoD civilians, 6. US contractors, 3,900. National military and police, 70,000 people were killed in Afghanistan war in the last 20 years. Civilians, 46,000 of civilians, which 40% of these 46,000 are women and children. Opposition, Taliban, and other fighters, because in Afghanistan, we had around 23 criminal networks, including the Taliban. So 52,000 or 53,000 oppositions were killed in Afghanistan war. Journalists and media workers, 74. Humanitarian aid workers, 446. In total, we had around 176,000 people killed only in Afghanistan. And of course, there were some casualty deaths in Pakistan side also, 67,000. In total, the Afghanistan war costed with 243,000 lives. So, next slide is this photo. I'm so sorry to showcase this photo, but this is the reality of the ground. I don't know how do you define this photo. Actually, these are the 3 photos. The first photo shows August 2001, just 1 month before the US occupation in Afghanistan. Before US coming to Afghanistan. A Talib is beating a woman with a stick. This is August 2001. 20 years, people, though we know there was war in Afghanistan, there was terror, there was suicide attacks, but people that they were starting to live in coexistence. People they were enjoying a little bit freedom and democracy, at least in the big cities. The second photo shows a coexisting, a woman and a man in a bookstore. But after all these 20 years of war, spending monies, losing all those lives, what happens? This photo. This is exactly happening in September 2021. What actually gives me, what actually burns me out, what actually gives me, I don't know how to express that. You can see a Talib member is pointing a gun to a woman who is raising her voice for freedom and democracy. But with what cost? The Talib soldiers pointing the woman with one M16 American-made gun That's the point. If you see, this gun is M16 American-made gun in the hand of a Talib who was a terrorist yesterday, and then he is pointing this gun to a woman who fought for freedom and democracy for the years. And of course, the ultimate goal of the international community in Afghanistan was to bring freedom and democracy. But this woman is again pointed with a gun, with the one M16 gun in the hand of a Talib. So this is the whole, actually, this is a brief picture of today's Afghanistan, yesterday's Afghanistan, and then all the way we came through 20 years. And what happens now? August 15 happened. Republic collapsed. Taliban came into power. 125,000 people have been evacuated from Afghanistan. But what happens with the rest of the people? Afghanistan has 40 million population. And of course, all of them were not Talib. Of course, half of them worked with the government. Half of them, they had like good intention. So now, unfortunately, the people of Afghanistan now, they're struggling with the poverty. So the Afghanistan had around $7 billion central bank reserve. They are blocked by the US. I have just some updates from that. On February 11th, the Biden administration, President Biden, just promised to release half of that blocked money to the Afghanistan people, to Afghanistan reconstruction. So 3.5 billion US dollar for the development activities and economic restoration of Afghanistan. But this really, of course, $3.5 billion is just waiting for the final order from the court, American courts, that goes to the victims of the 9/11. We are still not sure whether it's approved or not, endorsed or not. If it's endorsed to go for the 9/11 victims, that's another story. If it's not, but there are other three questions raises. Question number one, who will sign on behalf of the Afghanistan government? Now the Taliban is not internationally recognized. Who will sign? Because this is a requirement from the American Treasury Department. So one person should sign on behalf of the Afghanistan government, and who will sign that? Who will administer the fund? The fund is released. The fund is gone to Afghanistan. Bank accounts to the Afghanistan National Bank or Central Bank. Who will administer this money? And also, what these $3.5 billion money used for? These are the three questions that still we don't have the right answer for that. We don't have the answer for that. And also, I don't know, the time may respond to that. For now, we don't have the answer. $460 million of the emergency funds blocked by IMF, World Bank. $800 million received per year from the global remittance by the Western Union and MoneyGram. They're all suspended. Before 40% of Afghanistan GDP were coming from foreign aid, and 75% of the development budget was provided by the international community and the global donors. But now we are at 9.7 shrinkage in GDP expected this year, out of $20.46 billion in 2021. And of course, now the Taliban put restrictions on women, which that contributes an additional 5% in the decrease in the GDP. So of course, UN, the United Nations Assistant Mission in Afghanistan, also the United Nations Development Program in Afghanistan, they have requested for $8 billion development pact, economic development under the service and support economic growth, so which is not endorsed yet. And now Afghanistan is in the shrink of the 97% of the poverty. Afghanistan was in 36% poverty rate back in 2002, 2003. It raised. The first time when President Karzai was there, it was up to 46, 47%. International community was generously, they were supporting in Afghanistan, and people had work, people had money. So the poverty rate was around 46%. But later on, from 2014 to 2022, to 2021, the poverty rate raised up to 75%, up to 80%. But now this poverty rate goes to 97%. So in addition to all these things, so drought is another critical factor. Frozen foreign reserves, collapsing public finances. No bank is working right now in Afghanistan. If you go to Afghanistan, you can see a line of hundreds of people there waiting only for the ATMs.
Sure.
So increasing in pressure on
again.
So banking system is not properly working, and also the rising poverty in Afghanistan. However, the Taliban, they just signed and they just endorsed a 3-month national budget. From what sources the revenue comes? From the customs and from the taxes. That's for 3 months. And most of this money, most of this budget is going for the salaries of the civil servants and also for the education. This is the 3-month Taliban's budget. And they have declared, they have explained that these 3-month budget, national budget, is coming from the revenue channels like the customs and the taxes. However, this budget, which is approved by the Taliban, raises several questions. Is the Taliban administration actually spending this revenue on their declared budget priorities? Right now, spring is on its way. The oppositions, the armed oppositions of the Taliban, that just they're arising again. They're reassembling and should aid pay for costs, most notably salaries for teachers and other civil servants, that the Taliban regime now has the resources to cover and are included in the new budget? These are the questions that nobody knows the answers. So the overall budget, which is endorsed by the Taliban administration right now, is 53.9 billion Afghanis, which is around $508 million for the first quarter of 2022. State workers, this money goes to the state workers, many of whom have not paid for the months, and also women staff who have been set in their homes. Around 4.7 billion Afghans they have put for the infrastructure projects to restart, to relaunch. But in the meantime, the health system in Afghanistan is just right now is in a very critical situation. So most of the health services centers, they are not functional anymore in the country. However, though WHO, World Health Organization, ICRC, not IRC, ICRC, International Committee for Red Cross, and other health philanthropies, they have supported to pay the salaries of the health workers in Afghanistan, but that's not sustainable. this was an overview. Actually, this was an overview of the very brief overview of the socio-economic impact of the NATO and US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And now, what we have learned. Actually, I have splitted this in two parts, from two dimensions. Dimension number one is the external factors for the Afghanistan 20 years attempt failure. Why the attempts have been failed in Afghanistan in 20 years. Actually, these are some external factors, and this report actually comes from the SIGAR, Office of the Special Inspector of the US for the Afghanistan Reconstruction. So they figured out, this is actually a 700-page report from the lessons learned about the lessons learned from Afghanistan war, a strategy. During 20 years, neither the US nor the other countries and the international community, they came to a specific and well-articulated strategy for the Afghanistan war, Afghanistan reconstruction, and Afghanistan combat against the terrorism, and also for their development. There was not a clear strategy. The timeline. All the projects were designed for a short and temporary base. Everything in Afghanistan was projectized. Project has one start and one end. So every attempt in Afghanistan, every activity in Afghanistan was projectized. There was not long-run plan for any development effort in Afghanistan. And of course, the corruption, unfortunately. The widespread corruption in Afghanistan. The sustainability. Most of the projects implemented by the US and the international community, and of course by the national actors, they were not sustainable. Nobody thought about the sustainability of the projects. Personal. The personal dispatch to Afghanistan by any donor country, by any development agency, they were not put in the right place. The insecurity, everything, the deteriorating security every day in Afghanistan added to all the challenges. The context. In 20 years, and the years and years, and specifically in the last 20 years, nobody knew the context of Afghanistan. Nobody contextualized their efforts. And of course, monitoring and evaluation. There was not a proper monitoring and evaluation system in Afghanistan reconstruction and rebuilding. So these were the external factors. I have a long list of the internal factors, which is much important than the external factors. Afghanistan was the country of Afghans. Afghanistan was the home of Afghans. And those were the Afghans that had to take responsibility for the rebuilding and the construction of their country. So actually this lesson learned, which I have listed here, these are all coming from the peace dialogues that I personally conducted at the local level of Afghanistan. These lessons learned are coming from the very grassroots level. Poor governance in 20 years, and the years and years. Of course, in the contemporary history of Afghanistan from 50, 60 years, we didn't have a proper governance. Lack of a whole of government approach. Nobody was responsible. And lack of a mutual trust between the citizen and the government. An excessive dependency on the foreign aids. There was not even a single attempt for the self-sufficiency of the country. Though in the last 20 years, there were several models brought to Afghanistan, but not contextualized. We had the model of Bangladesh. We had the model of Indonesia. All the emerging economies, India, Thailand. Political and economic monopoly. Unfortunately, monopoly. Everybody was just thinking about the power for themselves and for their family members, economy for themselves and for their family members. And of course, imbalanced distribution of the resources, both development and the natural resources. Social injustice, different layers. Afghanistan was divided in different layers of the different societal layers, starting from the rich to the medium level, to the poor, and also among the poor. Ethnical, racial, religious, it was separated. It was divided. It was split down into separate pieces. Poverty, unemployment, lack of job opportunities during the last 20 years, of course. Years and years, specifically in the last 20 years. Many of Afghan youth generation, they have died on the way to Europe. They have sunk in the Pacific Ocean. Lack of basic public services. Millions, billions of dollars spent in Afghanistan, but nobody took care of all those simple infrastructures. Nobody took the responsibility. That was not the responsibility of the international community to keep the infrastructures for them. That was my personal responsibility. And lack of a proper interpretation of religious rites. Afghanistan is 99.5% is Muslim. They are calling themselves Muslim. We are Islam. But with what religious interpretation? There was not a proper interpretation of the beliefs. Taliban has one interpretation from Islam. Republic team had another interpretation. Other groups, other religious groups, they had their own interpretation from Islam. So everybody played just their game. Proxy wars, unemployment, social injustice. It paved the way for the proxy war and employment of the extremist groups, illegal armed groups. Two big projects have been implemented in Afghanistan: disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration project, and also the DIAC, disarmament of illegal armed groups. Two big projects with millions of dollars spent. But at the end of the day, people just, they actually no disarmament. People were disarmed from the arms from World War II, not from the very modern, from their modern weaponries. Poppy cultivation, another big headache, source of income for fueling the terrorists, for fueling the insurgency, for fueling insecurity in Afghanistan, for fueling for illegal income. And existence of widespread disputes over the division of natural resources. Afghanistan has a lot of natural resources, mines, water, lands. Around 3,000 trillions of dollars have been calculated for the Afghanistan mines and natural resources. But all those mines and natural resources were extracted illegally by the illegal armed groups. Only few were benefiting from all those natural resources. And poor knowledge of the peace concept. Nobody in the country, they attempted or they tried to learn what is social peace, what's coexistence. Let's live in coexisting. And of course, existence of traditional judiciary system, justice system in Afghanistan. These were all, actually, this was a brief internal factors of the Afghanistan disputes and conflict over the years and years. And now, after all these headaches, after all these years working with the international community, personally, I'm talking about myself. Finally, I ended up in Denver. And then now I'm working as a community sponsorship coordinator with IRC. And I'm there to help all those Afghan arrivals, the same like me, who have been evacuated from Afghanistan, who have been through the same situation as I have been. So finally, I have ended in Denver, and now I'm working in IRC. So let me walk you through very briefly, maybe just in a couple of minutes, through our community sponsorship program, if we have time. So then we will open the floor for the questions from the colleagues. So Actually, I've shared this before as well. Community sponsorship is an umbrella program. It's actually the whole resettlement process, a little bit different from the home program. Home program is more about the mentorship. However, the community sponsorship is about the resettlement. It's more responsibilities, more fun, I'm saying. However, the biggest responsibility still will remain with the affiliate, with IRC. So I wanted to, as an Afghan refugee, as a person who is working with IRC for the communities, I want to request you to be part of this community sponsorship program. Of course, home program is part of the community sponsorship. So in a bigger scale, if you are interested, so please take part in the community sponsorship program. It's a good opportunity to help our new neighbors. And then, and I'm sure we all enjoy from that. Actually, there are certain groups, 6 to 10% can be part of the community sponsorship program with different, subcommittees. We can go beyond 10%, but of course, in the subcommittees, the original, the main numbers for this group is 6 to 10%. We need 3 steps to become a community sponsor. We need time commitment. The time commitment actually from 3 months to 1 year, but 6 months is the average one. And we need, or we want from our community sponsors at least to take part in this process for 6 months. Sponsorship sizes between 3 to 6%, but the ideal one is between 6 to 10%. And financial commitment is a little bit, it's a little bit maybe costly, like between 3 to 5,000 K. And the funds will be given to the IRC for the management on behalf of your IRC, and IRC will be responsible and also will be accountable for that 3 to 5,000 K. The core services, the whole bunch of the core services are provided by our co-sponsors, so community sponsors. There are some roles and responsibilities of the IRC. Basically, the most difficult part will remain with IRC, but the rest of them will go to our co-sponsors. So this list of that, if you want, then I can share this presentation with you and you can have it. Also, we have a flyer. If you're interested, then we can share the flyer with all those roles and responsibilities. The eligibility is actually, we are targeting single parents at the first time. The first first eligibility is the single parents. The family size between 4 to 7, if in case we go to the families. And expected mother cases, like other potential cases to be matched, but not on eligibility criteria, and medically need cases. We have some cases that they're in urgent need of the medically, the needs. So we are targeting those people. We are all following the rules and regulations of the COVID-19. Safety security is the top priority in IRC. All IRC staff in Denver, they are vaccinated. They have to follow all the rules and regulations for the COVID-19. And also, Afghan evacuees who have been brought to the US between 15 August to September 1st, and even after that, they're all obligated to take the COVID-19 vaccines. However, for others, the requirement is when they apply for their legal permanent residency. So that was all from my side. I hope that was not making you tired. So the floor is open for your questions, and I'm to my possible extent, I'm trying to be responsive. Thank you so much.
Would you mind taking down your last slide so we can reconnect and see questions?
Yeah.
If you want to mail me that list, I can forward it to anybody that's interested.
Thank you so much, Jim. I will definitely forward you the flyer and also the this presentation if this presentation is if you're interested. But of course, I can share with you the flyer for this, which is more brief and simple overview of the community sponsorship.
Questions?
Yoon, do you mind taking down your PowerPoint so we can reconnect with the audience?
Okay, thank you. So I will stop sharing my
Yeah, and if you could send me that slide, I'll forward that on.
sure.
But we can do that later. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We're back with the whole group. So one question I have is, you told us about the numbers that have already arrived in Denver. So we are expecting more Afghan refugees to arrive, is that right?
Yes, basically we have right now around 1,850 people that they have arrived in Denver. So we're expecting around 2,000 Afghans to arrive in Denver from 97,000 plus, because historically Denver is the recipient or home of 2% of the total countrywide population, immigrant population.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Please, Jim.
You were doing a lot of our government support and advising. Did you ever feel like anybody was listening to you?
Excuse me, I couldn't get the answer, Jim.
Did you feel like we were listening to you when you were in Afghanistan as a consultant?
Basically, Afghanistan has gone through the 3 phases. First phase was a rebuilding and reconstruction of Afghanistan reconstruction phase. The second phase was the transitional phase. The first phase started from 2001 to 2011, and the second transitional phase started from 2012 to 2017 and 18, and the third phase, was developing phase, started from 2019. At the first phase, the reconstruction phase of Afghanistan, basically, there were too many of the international expats and international consultants dispatched to Afghanistan to provide guidance, advices, and also even direct implementation of the projects. In the transitional case, most of Afghans went abroad. They have learned, they got their masters, they got their PhDs, they returned home with too many experiences working abroad, studying abroad, and also bringing new knowledge and new technology and everything. Between 2001 and 2014, actually the government was listening to the advices of the consultants, advices of the international expats. However, there was so many shortcomings and challenges in this process. But from 2015, when the government, the new era of the Afghanistan government, the new era of republic started with a new president came into the power. So actually there was like a kind of, how can I say, they were assuming that they are more independent. So they were not listening more to the international advices. That's why there are a lot of claims and blames between the former governments, leaders, and the US right now. The USA is actually saying that the Afghanistan Republic team or the Afghanistan government didn't listen to their advices. They did everything independently. That's why they ended up with the situation which happened on August 15.
Thank you.
I hope that I could provide you the answer. Thank you.
I'd like to say our club in Parker has been in contact with Lutheran Family Services. We're hoping to be able to sponsor, at least socially, a Afghan family locally. Is that the right way to go about it?
Yes, you can do, but I think Lutheran Family Services also therefore started some types of the community sponsorship. and they're also part of the process. And of course, something like home program is part of the community sponsorship. So I would rather recommend to go through the Lutheran Family Services. If you are interested to work with them, with the Lutheran Family Services, you can go through them. And I would recommend to go through Lutheran Family Services instead of approaching directly to the families.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question. First, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. I'm really grateful for your presentation. I'm wondering, of the Afghans that have arrived here in Denver that you've worked with, what are maybe the top 3 challenges that you're seeing as they learn to live here and acclimate and, you know, just settle in?
Thank you so much, Tamara. Actually, I had a classmate by the name of Tamara when I was a student in Japan. Thank you so much, Tamara. Yes. So let me start from the short-term challenge and to the long-term challenge. There's a whole bunch of discussion about the challenges that the new arrivals are facing in the United States. The short-term challenge for the new arrivals is very short-term, is the housing. It's a short-term challenge because we have only 4% vacant housing for the new arrivals countrywide. We have medium-term challenge. I always call that, that term I use is the legal battle for the Afghan arrivals. 97,000 people who arrived in the US between 11 days, August 15th and August 31st. Every one of them has been entered into the US under humanitarian parole. This is not a status. However, this humanitarian parole provides for the Afghans, only for Afghans, the same rights and responsibilities as the other citizens. They can get the social security number. They can get the employment authorization document, the work permit. They're allowed to work in Afghanistan. Just they cannot vote. They can benefit from all other benefits, federal and the state benefits. But they don't have a status in the United States. They have to go through a long legal battle process. First, they have to apply for the asylum. Whether their asylum cases are accepted or not, who will take care of their asylum cases? Attorneys, lawyers. How many attorneys, lawyers? Pro bono or by low cost, high cost? After asylum, they have to stay with 1 year under that status. And after that, this is actually the timeline that's designed by the USCIS. So they have to, then after 1 year, they will be appraised, and then they can apply, appraised based on their lawful performance in the United States. And after that, they are eligible to apply for the green cards or the legal and the lawful permanent residence. So how many of these Afghans, 97,000 people, are eligible for the asylum, to be asylum in the United States? How many of them will face withdrawing from the US, sending back home? How many of them will get the extension in their humanitarian parole? How many of these Afghans will face with the SIV or special immigrant visa? So this is the second challenge, the midterm challenge. And the long-term challenges about the integration and adjustment of the new arrivals into their new societies and the societies and new communities in the United States. This is the third challenge, the major challenges that the Afghan arrivals are facing. And of course, everyone, if you go to details of everyone, there are a lot of details under each one of them. But in overall, these are the three major challenges that the new arrivals are facing now, right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Tamara.
Well, thank you very much, Milad. We are past our time. If people want to hang around, I guess we could a little bit, but right now it would be understandable if some of you need to sign off. But maybe we could go with another question or two if they come up.
Let me give the introduction for next month, and then yes. Next month, we're also very excited. This has been phenomenal. Thank you. But next month, we have a lady, Helen, from the Impact Officer of the Resetting the Table. And there's a tremendous website about Resetting the Table. It's an organization dedicated to building dialogue and deliberation across political divides. In the presentation, we'll share insights and methods from Resetting the Table that equip leaders and communities with tools and skills to address the challenges in our society today. It will be powerful also. And there'll be a lot more about her background and the information soon coming. Yeah, maybe one more question for Humyoon.
You can see in the chat, there's a lot of thank yous for your presentation, Milad. So thank you so much. We really appreciate the time you spent and the energy and the emotion. And this has got to be very tough for you to experience. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your expertise and your new role as helping IRC in Denver to help the Afghan population as they come in. I'm sure you provide a wonderful service to them too. But I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody, and I appreciate everybody that joining us today, and thank you so much for your time and patience today.
It was very well done. Appreciate it.
And with that,
Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you so much. So please, everybody, have a nice and good evening.
Good evening indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening to all.
Good evening to all.
Bye.